Hi, boys and girls. I'm back with a second story for this Monday. Do you notice something different about me? I'm wearing my glasses because this writing in this book the print is very small. So my glasses help me to see better. Like Millie wears her glasses so to help her see better. This story also begins with an S. It's called Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. This story is not about science. It really is magical. And do you see this beautiful gold medal? That means that this is an award-winning book. It's so good it won a medal. Many of you know that from some of Mrs. Boat's other books that we read. This book was written by William Steig. Steig is how you pronounce his last name. It's a little bit different, isn't it? And do you know the movie Shrek? I bet some of you know that story. This man wrote this story first and later wrote the story Shrek. So I bet you'll love this story. Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. Now watch what I'm going to do. You know that some books come with a little jacket. That's called the jacket of the book. It protects the book, just like you wear a jacket in the cold to protect yourself, protect your skin. So I'm going to take that little jacket and put it right down. It makes it easier for Mrs. Boat to hold the book. Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. You're right. See how the metal's gone there. Sylvester Duncan lived with his mother and father at Acorn Road in Oatsdale. One of his hobbies was collecting pebbles of unusual shape and color. See the beautiful pebbles? Pebbles are little stones, aren't they? Some of you love to pick up little pebbles and stones on the playground. On a rainy Saturday during vacation, he found quite an extraordinary pebble. It was flaming red, shiny and perfectly round, like a marble. As he was studying this remarkable pebble, he began to shiver, probably from excitement, and the rain felt cold on his back. "I wish it would stop raining," he said. It's that beautiful pebble he found. Even the rain was not going to stop him. To his great surprise, the rain stopped. He said, "I wish it would stop raining," and it did. It didn't stop gradually as rains usually do. It ceased. That means it stopped completely, just like that. The drops vanished on the way down. The clouds disappeared. Everything was dry, and the sun was shining as if rain had never existed. Wow, look. Even the birds in the water are looking up, wondering, what happened to the rain? Are those swans? Could be, or just big ducks. In all his young life, Sylvester had never had a wish gratified so quickly. It struck him that magic must be at work, and he guessed that the magic must be in the remarkable-looking red pebble, where indeed the magic was. To make a test, he put the pebble on the ground and said, "I wish it would rain again." Nothing happened. But when he said the same thing holding the pebble in his hoof, the sky turned black. There was lightning and a clap of thunder, and the rain came shooting down, and it was storming. "What a lucky day this is," thought Sylvester. "From now on, I can have anything I want. My father and mother can have anything they want. My relatives, my friends, and anybody at all can have everything anybody wants." He wished the sunshine back in the sky, and he wished a wart on his left hind leg would disappear. And it did. And he started home, eager to amaze his father and mother with his magic pebble. He could hardly wait to see their faces. Maybe they wouldn't even believe him at first. Do you think his mother and father will believe him? Good readers wonder things, don't we? I wonder what he will do with that magic pebble. What would you do with a magic pebble if you found one? As he was crossing Strawberry Hill, thinking of some of the many, many things he could wish for, he was startled to see a mean, hungry lion looking right at him from behind some tall grass. Sylvester was frightened. If he hadn't been so frightened, he could have made the lion disappear, or he could have wished himself safe at home with his father and mother. He could have wished the lion would turn into a butterfly or a daisy or a little tiny gnat. He could have wished many things, but he panicked and couldn't think carefully. He didn't know what to do. I guess I wish I were a rock, he said, and he became a rock. The lion came bounding over, sniffed the rock 100 times, walked around and around it, and went away confused, puzzled, bewildered. I saw that little donkey as clear as day. Maybe I'm going crazy, said the lion. That's Sylvester, isn't it? He wished he was a rock. Oh, no. And there was Sylvester, a rock, on Strawberry Hill, with the magic pebble lying right beside him on the ground. And he was unable to pick it up. Oh, how I wish I were myself again, he thought. But nothing happened. He had to be touching the pebble to make the magic work, but there was nothing he could do about it. His thoughts began to race like mad. He was scared and worried. Being helpless, he felt hopeless. He imagined all possibilities, and eventually he realized that his only chance of becoming himself again was for someone to find the red pebble and to wish that rock next to it would be a donkey. Someone would surely find the red pebble. It was so bright and shiny. But what on earth would make them wish that a rock were a donkey? The chance was 1 in a billion at best. Sylvester fell asleep. What else could he do? Night came with many stars. Meanwhile, back at home, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan paced the floor, frantic with worry. Sylvester had never come home later than dinner time. Where could he be? They stayed up all night wondering what had happened, expecting that Sylvester would surely turn up by morning. But he didn't, of course. Mrs. Duncan cried a lot, and Mr. Duncan did his best to soothe her. Both wished and wished to have their dear son with them. I will never scold Sylvester again as long as I live, said Mrs. Duncan, no matter what he does. As early morning came, they went about asking all their neighbors if they'd seen Sylvester. They're very worried. They talked to all the children, the puppies, the kittens, the colts, the piglets. No one had seen Sylvester since the day before yesterday. They went to the police. The police could not find their child. All the dogs in Oatsdale went searching for him. They sniffed behind every rock and tree and blade of grass, into every nook and gully of the neighborhood and beyond, but found not a scent of him. They sniffed the rock on Strawberry Hill, but it smelled like a rock. It didn't smell like Sylvester. There were a lot of dogs looking. After a month, 4 weeks of searching the same places over and over again and inquiring of the same animals over and over again, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan no longer knew what to do. They concluded that something dreadful must have happened and that they would probably never see their son again, though all the time he was very close to home. They tried their best to be happy, to go about their usual ways, but their usual ways included Sylvester, and they were always reminded of him. They were miserable. Life had no meaning for them anymore. They were so, so sad, lonely without their little boy. Night followed day, and day followed night, over and over again. Sylvester on the hill woke up less and less often. When he was awake, he was only hopeless and unhappy. He felt he would be a rock forever, and he tried to get used to it. He went into an endless sleep. The days grew colder. Fall came, and the leaves changed color. Then the leaves fell, and the grass bent to the ground. Then it was winter. The winds blew the way, this way and that. It snowed. Mostly the animals stayed indoors, living in where the food they had stored up was kept. One day a wolf sat on the rock that was Sylvester and howled and howled. Howl! Howl! Because that wolf was hungry. Then the snows melted. The earth warmed up in the spring sun, and things budded. Look at all the flowers coming. Springtime. This is starting to happen in Ionia, just like that, isn't it? Leaves were on the trees again. Flowers showed their young faces. Soon we'll have flowers everywhere. One day in May, Mr. Duncan insisted that his wife go with him on a picnic. Let's cheer up, he said. Let us try to live again and be happy, even though Sylvester, our angel, is no longer with us. They went to Strawberry Hill. Mrs. Duncan sat down on the rock. The warmth of his own mother sitting on him woke Sylvester up from his deep winter sleep. How he wanted to shout, "Mother, Father, it's me, Sylvester, I'm right here." But he couldn't talk. He had no voice. He was stone dumb. There's that pebble right there. Mr. Duncan walked aimlessly about while Mrs. Duncan set out the picnic food on the rack. Alfalfa sandwiches, pickled oats, sassafras salad, Timothy compote. Suddenly, Mr. Duncan saw the red pebble. "What a fantastic pebble!" he exclaimed. "Sylvester would have loved it for his collection." He put the pebble on the rock. They sat down to eat. Sylvester was now as wide awake as a donkey that was a rock as could possibly be awake. Mrs. Duncan felt some mysterious excitement. "You know, Father," she said suddenly, "I have the strangest feeling that our dear Sylvester is still alive and not far away." I am, Sylvester wanted to shout, but he couldn't. If only he had realized that the pebble resting on his back was the magic pebble. "Oh, how I wish he were here with us on this lovely May day," said Mrs. Duncan. Mr. Duncan looked sadly at the ground. "Don't you wish it too, Father?" she said. He looked at her as if to say, "How can you ask such a question?" Mr. and Mrs. Duncan looked at each other with great sadness and sorrow. "I wish I were myself again. I wish I were my real self again," thought Sylvester. And in less than an instant, he was himself again. You can imagine the scene that followed. The hugs and the kisses and the questions and the answers, the loving looks and the fond exclamations. All the words and things that they said to each other, and they're hugging and they're so happy. Look at Father. He looks like he's doing a jig. What a happy day. When they had eventually calmed down a bit and had gotten home, Mr. Duncan put the magic pebble in an iron safe. Someday they might want to use it. But really, for now, what more could they wish for? They had all that they wanted. They had each other, and they had the love of their family. You see, boys and girls, Sylvester and his family found love is more important than magic or gold at the end of a rainbow. Love is the most important thing out of all.